only an 8-game slate around Major League Baseball on a Monday. We recap for you here on this Tuesday, bright and early on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie. I am Ben. The Philadelphia Phillies at home yesterday, a homecoming or at least a return of sorts to the city of brotherly love for Rhys Hoskins, who homered in his return to Philadelphia. But the Phils still get a 3-1 victory. The Brew Crew entered Monday, DRS, riding a 5-game win streak. That came to a close as Philadelphia posts a 3-1 victory to open up this series against Milwaukee. David Dahl, in his debut in Philly, hits a home run, scores another run. There was a great reception for Rhys Hoskins, but ultimately everybody left the bank yesterday in Philadelphia happy as the Phils win 3-1 behind another stellar start from Zach Wheeler, the NL Cy Young favorite.
That's what's supposed to happen yesterday. Look, the Brewers are a good team. The Brewers are going to make the playoffs, and heck, the Brewers might even win that Central Division. But when you take a look at the best teams in baseball, the Phillies certainly in that conversation with the Dodgers and with the New York Yankees, just based on how many wins they have at this point. But also, you're at home after a loss. We always call this, you need a stopper on the mound to say, okay, got that loss, let's get a win back. Who's that stopper? Zach Wheeler, maybe going to win the Cy Young in the National League. He was tremendous last night. 7 innings pitched, 1 earned run. That's exactly what you needed after a frustrating loss in extra innings the night before to the Cardinals. And also, an emotional day coming back to Citizens Bank Ballpark with the return of Rhys Hoskins, who loved it in Philadelphia, but you can't pay everybody just on nostalgia. If there's no room for a guy, you can't just say, sure, come back, $17, $18 million a year, we'll find a spot for you. I think you found a great landing spot in Milwaukee, and the Phillies also have their first baseman in the future, which is Bryce Harper. Worked out yesterday, home run for Rhys Hoskins, win for the Phillies. I think the fans got everything they bargained for if they paid for ticket money yesterday heading down to the park.
Absolutely so, and the Phils are starting to play better baseball as well. Did not complete the sweep over the St. Louis Cardinals this weekend, but it dropped 2 straight series, almost unheard of for Major League Baseball's best team virtually all season long. Now Philly has won 3 of their last 4, 42 wins, matches the New York Yankees for the most in Major League Baseball, 42-19, both for the Yanks and the Phils, tied for the best record in all of MLB as well. Best record in the National League Central. In fact, the only winning record. In fact, the only record that is better than 2 games below 500. That's still the Milwaukee Brewers. 12 games above 500, 36-24. A 7-game lead for Milwaukee within this division, which makes a minus 160 price rather peculiar in my estimation, DRS. Yes, it is early. Yes, the calendar just flipped to June. We are here in the first week. The Cardinals overall are playing better baseball. The Cubs have so much talent. Maybe they can figure things out. But a 7-game lead is still a 7-game lead, regardless in which month of a Major League Baseball season it happens. And yes, you are paying minus money, but Milwaukee seems like the team to beat in the National League Central. I don't think minus 160 is all that hefty of a price tag.
No, it's really not that hefty of a price tag. Also, you're going to be getting some help back from your starting pitchers and also some injuries there, including Devin Williams in the bullpen. He comes back. That makes his team even more formidable. And also, just take a look at the landscape. Do we trust the Cardinals at this point? Not necessarily. The Chicago Cubs got a pretty good 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation, but seemingly can't hit their way out of a paper bag right now. So you are looking for the Brewers. And it's not so much early in the season anymore. We are in the month of June. A 7-game lead. I don't care if that's, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. That's hard to overcome a team with that far behind to do that, even though we do have June, July, August, and September to go. I like where the Brewers sit right now. They're a better hitting team than I anticipated, getting quality starting pitching, and we're waiting for maybe one of the best bullpen pitchers in baseball to come back. Future's bright here for the Brewers. Will they do damage in the playoffs? We'll find out. But you know what? They are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they certainly are, but there is still a large distinction between the Atlanta Braves, 3rd best number, even without Strider or Acuna Jr. to win the National League pennant at 5-1, in the fall off to Milwaukee, who has the 4th best price at 14-1. And if you win a division with a good record, there's a chance you earn that opening round bye. And yet still 14-1 for the Brew Crew. What's that old saying? Stick a fork in me, I'm done. Well, hide that fork in Houston, Donnie right side. the Astros a little bit of life, perhaps, with a 7-4 victory yesterday over the St. Louis Cardinals. A 4-run eighth that included a home run from Alex Bregman, and Houston responds with a 7-4 victory over St. Louis. Booked as a -178 home money line favorite. They make good on that price. Listen, still well below 500, but maybe we keep the cutlery in the shelf.
And by the way, cashing in my play today, yesterday, also, Yordan Alvarez, left-handed batter. Thought he would do some damage yesterday and did that. Also, I love Kyle Tucker as well. He got one plate appearance, got a base hit here. His next plate appearance, fouled a ball off of his shin and had to leave the game. So sort of a tough beat on that one. But you're right, coming back 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning, that shows a lot of heart here. Hader picking up his 9th save of the season after a clean bottom of the 9th inning. The fork is ready to circle around the food again. But last night, just couldn't put it in there, Ben. Just couldn't do it.
Donnie over the stove like this, testing the meat, seeing if it's ready. But that's actually the different utilization of that saying. It's put a fork in me, I'm done. Well, no, actually, that is the right. Anyway, we'll get to the food sayings and the metaphors in a little bit. But for the Astros, big victory. They had lost 5 of their last 7 entering yesterday's opener against the Redbirds. For St. Louis, lost the weekend in Philadelphia despite winning on Sunday Night Baseball to avoid the sweep. Lost the opener yesterday in Houston against the Stros. But the Cardinals still 13-6 in their last 19 games. They were 9 games below 500 on May 11th. They have responded again with a 13-6 record from that juncture. For Houston, still 7 games below 500. Still in contention, it would seem, for the American League West at a plus 950 price on the Astros to win the American League pennant. Since April 14th, DRS, the closest that the Astros have gotten to an even 500 record is 5 games below. Even with the win, still 7 games below 500 at this moment.
Here's the issue, though, that you take a look at with Houston. Who's coming back to rescue them? Because what we've seen out of Verlander for the first decade has been unbelievable Cy Young Award-winning pitching performances. But I think you're getting the Verlander of what we can anticipate the rest of the season, Ben. 5 innings pitched, 4 earned runs yesterday. That's just not good enough here from your ace, but you still bailed out late in the innings, which is a quality sign for the Astros. But I just don't like where they're going. Also, bad news on Urquidy as well. So tough scene for Houston Astros.
Bad news on Urquidy. Good point, DRS. We go elsewhere around MLB next. Opener yesterday in an American League East divisional duel between the Baltimore Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays, a battle of the birds up in the Great White North. And it goes the way of Baltimore to start. DRS on fire yesterday with the RBI props and telling you who to keep an eye on at the dish. He mentioned in the game for Houston, Yordan Alvarez, home run. Anthony Santander yesterday against Kevin Gausman, also a home run. Austin Hayes hit 2 long balls for Baltimore, and Grayson Rodriguez, sensational on the bump. 7 innings of work, only allowing a single earned run as Baltimore takes the opener in Toronto over the Jays by a final score of 7-2.
Yeah, Gausman had been having a really good run as of late. Looked like recreating what we saw for the past couple years, but he finishes with 6 1/3 innings pitched, which is fine getting into the 7th inning, but you can't give up 6 hits and 6 earned runs and only 3 Ks. That lineup for Baltimore certainly would attack. I thought Gunnar Henderson might have been a good shot in an RBI prop. He came up a little bit lame yesterday, 1 for 5, but got a double, I believe, late in that ball game. But this is what you get. There are no easy outs in that lineup for the Baltimore Orioles. 38-20 now in the season. And Grayson Rodriguez, we talked about him a lot last year. When it was up-and-coming young pitchers in that lineup, what can he provide? Now you have an ace on that staff, Corbin Burns. You got 6 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned run on the road against a division rival. Man, that's exactly what you would love to bargain for. And also, Rodriguez now 6-2 on the season. We love the Orioles. We'll talk about them on a day-to-day basis. Why? Exciting lineup, a lot of RBI opportunities, and some pretty good frontline pitching here. That's how you get a 38-20 record.
And yesterday, pretty close spit in terms of those money line prices. Baltimore -112 with Kevin Gausman on the bump. Toronto -104. Total of 7.5 does sky over because of the bats yesterday for Baltimore. Colton Cowser, the other rookie for the O's, a couple of ribbies as well. Toronto entered yesterday winners of 5 of their last 6, despite being a few games below 500. But those 6 games came in a series sweep over the White Sox last week and a series victory over the Pirates over the weekend. Baltimore now victorious in 9 of its last 11. And that's really the story, DRS. This young Orioles team, who won 100 games last year, 2 years after losing 100. The Orioles were the number 1 seed in the American League playoffs last year, bounced in the opening round. Maybe a tad too early in terms of the postseason pedigree, but now you gain that experience. And for the first time in a long time, the O's entered the 2024 MLB season with expectation. So far, they are passing with flying colors, 38-20 for Baltimore, third best mark in the American League, second best price to win that AL pennant, only behind their divisional foes, and the team that is tied for the best record in all of MLB, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, you got to walk before you can run. You saw last year maybe a little bit ahead of schedule on the Orioles, picking up so many victories and having a solid season. Now the expectations, as you pointed out, are to make the playoffs and do some damage in the playoffs. And I like that lineup across the board. And keep in mind, we talk about some of these teams just in the month of June that are looking to make pressing, runs deep into the playoffs and or win a World Series. I'm interested to see where these front offices go to sort of add that next level talent, because the teams that separate themselves are the teams that are like, the Yankees are really good. The Phillies are really good. The Dodgers are really good. The Orioles are really good. Who's going to go all in and say, okay, we're not just going to pick up like a guy that's going to help us out in the 6th or 7th inning out of the bullpen. Who's going to help out with a frontline starting pitcher, an absolute all-star trade that you make here? One of these teams is going to do that to separate themselves. And I'm hoping one of those teams would be the Orioles, because that would be a fantastic run down the stretch in just one division alone in the AL East. Can you imagine the Yankees and the Orioles for supremacy there, making trades at the deadline and going all in? Be a lot of fun to watch it play out.
We'll look at those pennant prices in just a moment in both of the leagues. The story in the National League, that tier of 3, the Dodgers, the Phils, the Braves, and then everybody else. Right now, at least from the prices in the American League, it's the Yankees, a short favorite at plus 170, and a grouping of teams you would think that are in true contention for a pennant in the AL. Does Donnie Rightside agree? We will find out. Yesterday, dead even pick'em in the opener of a series in Texas, in Arlington, between the Tigers and the Rangers. Tarek Skubal on one side for Detroit, Nathan Eovaldi on the other for the Rangers. And Skubal and the Tigers get the better of the Rangers. 2-1 the victory. Great starting performances really from both sides, but the difference being Jake Rogers, the native of Canyon, Texas, homers twice back in his home state. Both of the runs for the Tigers, those 2 solo shots. Detroit wins 2-1.
Usually you'd say to yourself, Ben, let me see if I want to take an over. I'll tell you, if there's going to be 3 home runs in this ball game, give me the over. Yeah, 3 home runs, 3 solo shots, 2-1 final. And also, how about Skubal opening up against Marcus Semien right off the bat, giving a home run? It's like, you know what? That's going to be enough. And I believe there was a clip floating around, tweeted around, where it's like, hey, you know what? DRS says the Tigers should win this ball game. Cha-ching, they did.
Yes, they did. Skubal now 7-1 with a 1.97 ERA. Pennant price is up next. Pennant price is live right here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. More than 2 months into this Major League Baseball season, DRS. Here we are in the opening week of June. Memorial Day weekend now in the rear view. The rest of the summer on the horizon. It feels a little bit more legitimate when you start to get into the early summer days and weeks of the month of June, deeper into this month, into July, August, so on and so forth. And I think there are some storylines emerging around Major League Baseball so far this season. We start in the National League pennant prices, where really the story all year was the tier of 2, with the Phillies ever so slightly behind both the Braves and the Dodgers. But the shakeup has been, one, because of Philadelphia's excellence on the diamond. 42 wins, the most in MLB for a good majority of this opening half of the year. The Phils have had the best mark in all of the bigs. And then also because of the injuries to Atlanta. Spencer Strider out for this year, the ace for the Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr., reigning National League MVP, injured 2 weekends ago, out for the rest of this season as well. Now really it's a tier of 3 where the Braves sit in third and the Dodgers remain the favorites, but the Phillies have that second shortest price at plus 270.
And by the way, we're taking a look at some of these pennant prices as they shape up, and I technically agree that maybe the Dodgers should have a slight lead, because we always know something's up the Dodgers' sleeve. For whatever reason, single A, double A, triple A, they have the best prospects. They can afford anybody they want, and money is of no object. So if they want to go out and get themselves another all-star player by the deadline, if they need it, they will do that. But the Phillies have shown a propensity to pay a lot of money in their payroll as well. Top 2, top 3 payroll in Major League Baseball. They will make moves. But also, take a look at the competitive advantages right now, Ben, Ben, across the National League in the East, Central, and West. 7-game lead for the Phillies, 7-game lead for the Cubs, 7-game lead, or 7-game lead for the Brewers over the Cubs, and a 7-game lead here for the Dodgers. Like, are we watching some of these teams just running and hiding already, and we're not even through the first week of June? It'll be interesting over the next month and a half, right up to the All-Star break, to see if these teams can close that gap. But we honestly could be looking, because the Phillies don't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. And you can't fault the Braves for being 33-24. Like, hey, we're having a really good season. The Phillies are just doing it on a historic level right now. And also, what do the Braves have to offer, and when does their lineup start to turn over and start hitting the baseball, because they're getting good pitching and still winning games? But you take a look at the Cubs, they're under 500 right now. I thought this was one of those teams that could be able to challenge, because we talked about that frontline pitching of their staff, but they certainly haven't been hitting the baseball all that well. Only 257 runs scored compared to 305 by the Brewers, who we never accuse of being a great offensive team. And then the Dodgers, I'm waiting for the Padres here to sort of turn that corner, because I do think they have a lot of talent, but they're only one game over 500. So it looks like the Phillies, Brewers, and the Dodgers, if you just took a parlay right now on who was going to win the division, it'd be hard-pressed to say one of those teams is going to fall off, because they already have a 7-game lead.
The Phils now minus 260 to win the National League East, not only because they have maintained the advantage for the top spot, but of course the expected odds regression for Atlanta, no longer seemingly the favorite without Ronald Acuna Jr. But the Braves have won the National League East for 6 consecutive seasons. The Brewers only minus 160, despite a 7-game lead, and the only team above 500 in the National League Central. Again, that seems slightly peculiar, but the Cardinals entered the year as the favorites to win the National League Central, as they did last year, despite finishing last year in the bottom of the 5 teams in this division. And the Cubs were the optimistic team, where the starters for Chicago have been very good. The bullpen has been shaky, and the offense over the last 2 weeks has been, frankly, non-existent. And the Dodgers have won the National League West 10 of the last 11 years, and the Padres are only a game above 500. In fact, right now, DRS, as you see that drop-off between Atlanta and Milwaukee, it speaks in greater part to the entirety of the National League. There are only 5 teams that are above 500, and that 5th team is San Diego, who is only a game above 500. We know how the playoff picture now looks in Major League Baseball, where the last few years have featured a team that has come out of nowhere, basically. The Phillies in Red October 2 years ago to win the National League pennant. The Arizona Diamondbacks against those Phils last year, 2 wild card teams battling it out for the pennant as well. But you would just think, based on how the bracket plays out, the odds would certainly favor the Dodgers, the Phillies, not the Braves, the Brewers. Milwaukee right now is only a game and a half behind LA for what would be that 2nd spot, earning that first round bye past the wild card on to the divisional round within Major League Baseball. We're almost at a point, given where the divisional races are in the National League, despite it being early June, DRS, from forecasting what the MLB playoff bracket looks like instead of deciding who could win these divisions.
Yeah, and also when you're trying to forecast those brackets, we remember the turbulence here, now that we've added the extra wild card, was actually happening, where you're saying we want our best teams to advance, and that's not actually happening, because in Major League Baseball, sometimes it's just that hot team coming in and used to playing on a day-to-day basis, and if you continue that playoff run, because if you are a wild card team, there's a good chance that over those final 2 weeks of the season, every single game matters on not only you making the playoffs or where your seeding winds up. So you stay in that playoff mentality right into that first round of that wild card matchup, which then goes right into the divisional, where the divisional team is just sitting around like, hey, we probably had this division wrapped up for 3.5 weeks. We're not really mentally sharp right now. And you try to jump in against a hot team, that's burn them. But also, when you get into the playoffs, momentum, that's fantastic. You're hitting a baseball, and you want that to carry over. Momentum is only as good as the starting pitcher the next day. And if you are going to line up a great 1-2 punch, you are going to have an advantage regardless of what the other team does at the plate, which is why we take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies. Hey, look, the Phillies haven't played a good team in 3 weeks here and all this and that, and the divisional round comes up. Oh, Zach Wheeler's had a 10-day break since his last time he's pitched. Then you have Aaron Nola right behind him, and maybe you have, a Sanchez stepping up or Ranger Suarez behind them. That's what wins in the playoffs here. We'll see if it shapes up, because sometimes it's more important how your rotation is set as you get to the playoffs, as opposed to how hot your bats are in the final 2 to 3 weeks.
Listen, the last 2 years, there has been that debate, rest versus rust. Does it benefit you winning a division? Does it benefit you having that opening round bye in Major League Baseball now with how the playoff bracket has been reshaped? All we can say at this point is you want the best record. You want the most wins. You want the easiest path. We'll see what comes to fruition because do not forget, those are pennant prices. Winning the National League pennant is how you catch that number on the Phillies, on the Braves, on the Dodgers, on the Brewers, so on and so forth. Now we go to the American League, where the Yankees have the most wins in that side of Major League Baseball, tied for the most in all of the bigs. Plus 170, the shortest price we have seen on the Yanks to win the pennant so far this season. You got to go pretty far back to get to the second best number at 5-1 for the Orioles. But, Donnie, in the National League, 4 teams, including the Brewers, at 14-1 or shorter. There are 7 teams right now in the AL at that 14-1 price or better. It would seem to be a little bit more of a wide-open race, at least behind New York.
It is. And by the way, to me, it's the Yankees and the Orioles as 1 and 1A in the American League. Now, only one team can win this division, and that's going to be a help where you would get home field advantage after that, and instead of going to the wild card round, which let's just say the Orioles will go to. But I got to tell you, the AL West, I don't know if it's fair to say we're going to write them off. Not a big fan of the Mariners. Decent starting pitching staff, average lineup at best. The Texas Rangers, 29-31. Way too much talent on that ball club, but you might be getting some superstar pitchers back by the end of the season to see if that makes a difference. The Houston Astros, we're waiting for them to wait. I'm not waiting for them anymore. I'm just not a believer that the Astros are a very good ball club in order to maybe win an AL pennant, which then brings up the Guardians. So, nobody talking about them, Ben. 39-20 overall, 4-game lead over the Kansas City Royals, who are 36-25, followed by the Twins, who are actually 33-26, and then the Tigers are rated 500. Is maybe the best, division or competitive division in baseball is the AL Central here with so many teams over 500 and playing great here.
Yep.
I don't want to say watch out for the Guardians because I don't know if they have that top-end talent of pitching enough to maybe battle with the Yankees or Orioles, but that's a great story, and 39-20 is a really good record.
The AL Central is the only league, or division, in Major League Baseball that has 3 teams with a winning record. The American League Central.